I'm a talker.
I am too.
I like to talk.
I'm extremely shy until I get comfortable with somebody, then I'll talk.
Right. No, I'm the same way. All right, we're ready?
Okay, I'm ready. When I was in high school, my plan was very simple. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get into USC, like George Lucas and Spielberg or people like that, and I'm going to move to California and make movies. And that didn't happen. I had no money. I was too afraid to go to California. I had no network, none. So I decided I need to, if I was going to do that, I needed to save money. I needed to figure out how I could do it. And then I decided to go to Ohio University, which had a film department. I thought I'd start there and then transfer to USC. It's always my goal to get to California. I was going to go to California. And then I went to Ohio University, hated it, dropped out, felt like a failure, moved back to Lexington. All my friends are off at college. I'm a dropout, basically. I went to work at Long John Silver's. And that's when I started seeing the films by John Sayles and those guys and going, oh, these guys are making films. I don't have to be Spielberg and Lucas. I can be this. And I thought, well, I got to go somewhere. I can't just sit around in my parents' house. So I enrolled at EKU kind of as a whim. I had two really dear friends who were already there. And they said, you should come up and visit. So I visited the campus. I went through the program, and there in the program was were film classes, and it was a film minor, which at that time I had no idea. It was a mass communications class, there's production classes, and I took those and I loved them. And they were, in retrospect, they were great classes, as good as the film classes I took at a legitimate film school later. And that really suddenly made you go, okay, now I can do this again. Now I can do this. So suddenly I had a purpose again. And I took all the film classes they had to offer at that point, and that's how I came there. And I also did a lot of writing. I was technically an English major at that time, so I did a lot of short story writing. It was a great time, but I didn't realize how great it was at the time. And that's something you learn as you get older, is to be in the moment a bit more. But I was writing short stories. I had great roommates. I had friends. And that's really what you need to kind of sustain you and give you confidence to try something. But through the curriculum at EKU, I'd already done a lot of film production on my own. I was very self-taught at that point, because when I was young, I got a camera and I went out and I shot movies. I did it all through high school. So a lot of the production techniques I already knew. So I was able to experiment a little more, not so much with the production techniques at EKU, but through the storytelling parts of it. That's where I became more of a storyteller, and the short story writings and the studying. There was a great class at EKU that I took at the time called Literature and Film, and it was about movies that had been made from books or short stories or something like that. And that was a terrific class. It was great to see how a short story by Dashiell Hammett would be turned into a feature film script. So it really, instead of the production part of it, it made me focus on the storytelling part of it. And that's where I started really becoming a writer, was at EKU. Big break moment. So I finished film school. I worked on some sets. I got some jobs as a production assistant on films that were shot locally or in Kentucky. I still, at this point, I was starting to think, I was trying to make the decision to stay here or move to LA still. And but I wanted to stay in Kentucky at this point, but I didn't know how I could justify staying in Kentucky because I wasn't working. But I got hired. I was working as a valet at a high-rise condominium here in Kentucky, and there's a lot of very prominent people who live there. And I was sitting there each day writing. That's all I did, was write my scripts there. And I met a lot of people who would come in and say, "What are you reading? What are you writing?" And I would tell them, and a lot of them were also successful business people, and I was developing stuff. One of them, a guy named Ed Hart, who was opening Kentucky Kingdom at the time, said, "I'm looking for people to work for me." I said, "Great." So he hired me from that, and I ran their entertainment department, the entertainment department at Kentucky Kingdom. It was a startup business. They didn't have any money. They'd taken a chance on me. For the first time, I had to hire people, hire seasonal people, negotiate contracts for musical acts, learn music license. So I was producing, basically. Suddenly I'm producing, and so you take that combined with your writing skills and your love for that, and I'm like, I know how to put a budget together now. Now I know how to do this part of it. It was just taking what was given to you and learning the aspects of production without even knowing it consciously. I left Kentucky Kingdom because I got an assistant directing job on a KET movie that was shooting in Somerset. And I assistant directed that film, and I realized the whole crew was from Kentucky. Nobody had made a feature in Kentucky since A guy had tried it in the 70s, it was a disaster, but no one had done it since then. And so I had John Sayles in my head. I had EKU storytelling. I had the production experience from Kentucky Kingdom, and I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. So I wrote a script. I wanted to make it as small as possible, but I wanted to come up with something weird about it that people would, to make it stand out. So I thought I'm going to make the whole movie take place in one room. And, you know, and I chose a bathroom at a really nice upscale apartment. And the whole thing takes place at a wedding reception, except the first scene and the last scene. And that's the whole movie. And people go in and out of this bathroom, and that was it. So I made that film for nothing, practically. But I got it too. Remember I talked about Spike Lee. I knew his rep was a guy named John Pearson. He was in New York. He had a small production company, but he was repping all these independent little guys. And I thought, that's the guy who needs to see my film. And I sent him a cassette of a rough cut of the movie. I don't even remember how I got his address, but I did. And sent it to him, and then a week later, I got a call back from him going, this is John Pearson, and of course I'm like, oh my God, it's John Pearson. He's like, I just watched your tape, it's really good, I can do something with this. And you're like, oh my God, that's it. Okay, this is that's the moment. We went through a bunch of stuff, we were in the Hollywood Reporter, you know, all this stuff, and we ended up selling the film to the Sundance Film Channel, which was owned by Showtime. And it aired nationwide, and I got a check, and I'm like, I'm a filmmaker now, and I'm doing it here in Kentucky. So suddenly, those people I admired about making films regionally, I was one of those guys, and that was it. So that was the beginning, and that's what took me off. That was validation.
What advice would you give to an aspiring filmmaker at EKU?
First of all, love every minute while you're there. Don't do what I did and keep looking for. Well, as soon as I get out of here, I'll do this. Be in that moment and take everything you can from that moment and be as passionate about that work as you can be. And then figure out what you want to do. A lot of students ask me, you know, do I have to go to film school? And this is not the right answer for a lot of people, but it depends on the person. Sometimes it's like, just go do it. You know, I got a film degree and I ended up as a valet. And what do you do with that? Well, you look for the opportunities and you always stay focused on what you wanted to do. I knew I have to make a movie. I have to make a movie. That was my goal. Do that. You have a lot of people go, well, while you're doing that, maybe you should go back to school and get, you know, a backup degree in case this doesn't work out. You can do that. I don't agree with it. I say, no, just do that. So what if you have to work as a valet for a while, or if you have to work for an amusement park for a bit, or if you have to do this? Stay focused, and eventually, if you work hard and you're passionate about it and you're not a jerk to people, it will line up, but keep working at it. So don't stop. When everyone else says, I can't do it, you go, okay. When your second film's a major flop, you get back down, you find your third film, and you get it made. You just keep going. No one is going to work as hard for you as you will.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.